You're welcome on Blackwood Fire Network. I'm INNOSSETU with my colleague. It is a Wednesday. Today is 27th of March 2024. Hope guys, your guys been good. For those that are watching us from different countries, I know you're doing good. Though in Uganda yesterday and even today morning we had some rain, but now the situation, the clouds are now clear. For those that are watching us on different social media platforms, for those that are watching us on different social media platforms, that is Facebook, Blackwood Fire Radio Station, and of course YouTube Blackwood Fire Network too, and Twitter Blackwood Fire Network. I welcome you to, of course, this conversation for this to this discussion to this show today. That is a bit. It's not even a bit. It's something that is interesting. It's about South African politics and how politics are going on in South Africa. Different African countries are holding elections this month, this year, sorry. Recently, Senegal had elections, and of course, they have a new president by now, Faye. We talked about him the other time. And of course, South Africa is also expecting elections in May. So today we are here to, of course, discuss the stake of ANC, ANC's stake in South African elections that are going to be held in May this year. So our discussion is going to rotate around South Africa. We're talking about South Africa today. So if you're interested in South African politics, South African history, the people that are living in South Africa, ways of life and lifestyles in South Africa, just sit down, and watch. And watch. Um, we we know that on, of course, 29th May of this year, nearly 28 million South African registered voters. By the way, South Africa is one of those African countries that have bigger populations. If you know, South Africa also is also among the African countries with big populations. So with of course nearly 29 million people are registered for voting in South Africa in this in this upcoming election. So the 28 million South African registered voters have the chance to elect representatives to the national and, of course, provincial parliament. So it will be the country's seventh democratic general election. So South Africa is heading for a general election in late May, with some polls suggesting the governing African National Congress could get less than 50% of the vote for the first time in 30 years. So, mounting criticism of the party that led to the fight against the apartheid under the late Nelson Mandela has chipped away at its support, raising the possibility of post-coalition government. So the ANC is this party that has been in South Africa, that has been ruling in South Africa for over the last 30 years. So what do we expect this time around for ANC? Why? What is ANC cooking for South Africans this time around? Because we see less than 50% of the people in South Africa to, of course, go in for ANC. Um, uh, uh, of course, someone will ask, when is South Africa's election? So on 28th May, of course, like I said, at first, nearly 28 million South African registered voters have a chance to elect representatives to the national and provincial parliament. So it will be the country's seventh democratic general election. They have taken place every 5 years since 1994, when the white minority rule ended and the ANC came to power. So, what is the stake? What is at the stake for ANC, and what are its policies this time around? Because very many people have debated like ANC may lose elections in these forthcoming elections in South Africa. So, what are the policies this ANC has put down? So, the ANC, now led by the President Cyril Ramaphosa, is under growing pressure. Stubbornly high unemployment, which hit 32% last year, persistent economic inequalities. This is, of course, something that South Africa has been experiencing for some good time. Economic inequalities, they are too much in South Africa, alongside the highest rates of unemployment, corruption allegations, and frequent power cuts have reduced its popularity among the people of South Africa. But the ANC says it is working to fix these problems, and it is urging people not to throw away gains made since the end of the apartheid. So the party says poverty levels have fallen, greater proportion of South Africans live in decent homes, and access to health care has improved. So the NEC has promised to create millions more jobs over the next 5 years if it is given a chance in these elections that are going to be held. So, to boost investment, support the private sector, and end corruption. So, what are the DA and EFF opposition parties offering? Because South Africa is alongside these opposition political parties that are putting, of course, the ANC on gunpoint. We see ANC right about now in South Africa. It looks like it is an hostage political party amongst these opposition political parties in South Africa. So the main opposition, Democratic Alliance, says the country is in crisis. It wants to liberalize the economy, including move towards greater privatization. It has pledged to create 2 million new jobs, end power cuts, and, of course, how the rate of violent crimes, because we see a lot of violent crimes in South Africa. There are two African countries that normally have violent crimes. Um, South Africa is number one. We have Nigeria and other African countries. So, um, to address unemployment and inequality. The economic freedom fighters, the third largest party in parliament, has radical economic solutions. So the party argues the ANC argues that ANC has not readdressed the radical economic imbalances of apartheid. It plans to, of course, redistribute land to the less well off. So the EFF also wants to nationalize mines, banks, and other key parts of the economy, arguing that the wealth of the country would then be used to benefit the majority. So, um, what about the the Jacob Zuma and his MK party? We see that this granted former President Jacob Zuma, who outstayed Mr. Ramaphosa amidst corruption allegations that he denies and later jailed for defying court order, has thrown his considerable political weight behind the rival, the fresh rival to the ANC. We see that the Umukoto Sizwe, which is the MK party, which has taken its name from the ANC's former armed wing, adds further unpredictability to the rest. It could not make strong showing in Mr. Zuma's home promise of KwaZulu Natal. So, in brief, manifesto it plagues to transform South Africa, including aim to create 5 million jobs. I don't know whether this is possible within 5 years. Who could be South Africa's next president? We see that South Africa did not vote for a president. Instead, they elect 400 member of 400 members of the National Assembly, and that is their parliament. So, who go on to vote for a new head of state within 30 days of the general elections. As a result, there is no presidential candidate. Um, as such. So, but each party leader fronts their national campaign and their portrait that will appear on the ballot paper. So, the NEC's president Ramaphosa, the DS John Stesen, and of course the EAF Julius Malema will all feature prominently. So the leader of whichever party can muster the majority in the National Assembly of the elections will be expected to become the next president. So how does this election work? Someone would like to know, how does all this work? Yes, we heard about different parties. So, how do elections in South Africa work? So, South Africa is taken to be among those African countries that are experiencing um, democracy. Yeah, yeah, democracy. But like I said, the proportion of seats that parties are allowed in the 400 member National Assembly is directly related to their share of the vote. So in 2024, independent candidates are expected to be included for the first time. So this means that South Africans will cast three votes. National Parliament one for 200 of seats, which just the political parties named on the ballot. National Parliament, one of the remaining 200 seats within the different ballot paper for each of the 9 provinces, listing the parties in that region and independent candidates. So provincial assembly, one of the independent candidates or parties in the regional legislature. So, how would a coalition be formed in South Africa? So the constitution does not spell out how coalition could be formed, but assuming the ANC remains the largest party, smaller groupings could be, of course, informally agree to the support an ANC government on a vote-by-vote basis in return for some concessions. So, or at the other hand, we see that at the other end of possibilities, the ANC could enter a formal coalition with some parties, including the written agreement outlining uh, legislative uh, plans and distribution of cabinet posts. So any other party would face the same choices, but there is also a group of parties led by DA and of course have signed up to what has been called the multi-party charter for South Africa. If together they get more than 50% of the seats, they have already agreed to form a coalition. So the agreement does not include the EAF in South Africa. It doesn't. Um, South Africa is, of course, heading a general election in the late May, like I said, with some polls suggesting the governing African National Congress, which is the ANC, get less than 50% of the vote for uh, the first time in 30 years. So, mounting criticism of the party that led to the fight against apartheid under the late Nelson Mandela has chipped away at its support, raising the possibility of coalition government. Um, uh, like I said, 28 million South Africans are registered to vote in South Africa this time around, and to, of course, elect representatives to the national and provincial parliaments. It will be the country's seventh democratic generations, and of course, they have taken place every 5 years since 1994 when the white minority rule ended and the ANC came to power. So South Africa has a country. Actually, before even you go to South Africa, the African National Congress in South Africa is a political party in South Africa, and of course it originated as a liberation.
Ntandikira ntandikira. If we see, of course, the African.
Right about now, it is Ramaphosa that is, of course, the leader of ANC in
Mm,
South Africa today. But a lot of people that are in South Africa that are judging of South African history, they are
mm,
saying that South Africa may not get that chance, ANC may not get that chance in these forthcoming elections, that
mm,
may get almost less than 50% that is required for one to, of course, seat,
mm,
like to get a lot of seats, because South Africans, they don't elect the president as people.
mm,
It is the seats in the parliament, then the parliament decides which president they be. So, natural, your political party, if it has a lot of seats,
mm,
your president,
mm,
together.
mm.
So that is South African kind of way. That's how they do their thing. So,
Yeah, so the African National Congress, the one we usually call the ANC, is a political party in South Africa. It originated as a liberation movement known for the opposition to apartheid and has governed the country since 1994. Just like INNOSSETU was telling us now, when the first post apartheid election resulted in Nelson Mandela being elected as president of South Africa, Cyril Ramaphosa, the incumbent national president, has served as a president of the ANC since 8th December 2017. Now, the ANC was founded on, of course, 8th of January, that was 1912, in Bloemfontein, Bloemfontein as the South African Native Nation Congress. Now, the organization was formed to advocate for the rights of Black South Africans, and of course, you can see the people who were fighting for the freedom of South Africa at that time being part of ANC. Now, when the National Party government came to power in 1948, uh, the ANC's central purpose became to oppose the new government, the new government's policy of institutionalized apartheid. Now, to this end, its method and means of organization shifted. Now, its adoption of the techniques of mass politics and the swelling of its membership culminated in the defiance campaign of civil disobedience that is around 1952 to 53. Now, the African National Congress was banned by the South African government between April 1960, now shortly after the Sharpeville massacre. Now, on February 1990, of course, during the period, despite periodic attempts to revive its domestic political underground, the African National Congress was forced into exile by increasing state repression, which of course saw many of its leaders imprisoned on Robben Island headquarters in Lusaka, Zambia. Of course, the exiled ANC dedicated much of its attention to a campaign of sabotage and guerrilla warfare against the apartheid state. Now, it's carried out under its military wing, Mkhonto Wesizwe, which was founded in 1961 in partnership with the South African Community Party, ASAC. Tambuzago Katini. So, we know that the African National Congress was condemned as a terrorist organization by the governments of South Africa. Now, the United States and the United Kingdom, however, it positioned itself as a key player in the negotiations to end apartheid. At that time, by the way, United States of America and United Kingdom, of course, condemned African National Congress and termed it to be a terrorist organization. But it positioned itself as a key player in the negotiation to end apartheid, which began in the earnest after the ban was repealed in 1990. Now, in the post apartheid era, the African National Congress continues to identify itself foremost as a liberation movement, although it is also a registered political party. Now, partly due to its tripartite alliance with the South African Community Party, SAP, and the Congress of South African Trade Union, it has retained a comfortable electoral majority at the national level and in most provinces, and has provided each of South Africa's five presidents since 1994. Uh, Now, South Africa is considered a dominant party state. However, the African National Congress electoral majority has decided consistently since 2004, and in the most recent elections, the 2021 local elections, its share of the national vote dropped below 50% for the first time ever. Now, over the last decade, the party has been embroiled in a number of controversies, particularly relating to widespread allegations of public corruption among its members. I would say that Ramaphosa has experienced a hard time in his leadership. Ramaphosa has had, there have been a lot of disagreements. There have been a lot of unsatisfaction um, among the people, and a lot of complaints. Of course, with the situation that is currently in South Africa, and that's why it is a little bit uh, frightening that to the African National Congress, apparently, like you said, that the prediction of people trying to predict that this time round African National Congress may not have that chance to come yet again in power, since they have been of course, they have been taking lead of South African government. But we have seen how it has been unfolded. First of all, the African National Congress first time was about the black people, the black tribes, the black. So it always had the biggest support. Remember, black people are the biggest majorities in South Africa, and the African National Congress having this agenda to fight for the rights of the black people. Everything changed in the when Nelson Mandela came in that picture, because we saw Nelson Mandela actually particularly trying to support a lot of this white to African relationship. We saw the connection Nelson Mandela actually had. Nelson Mandela had a big connection with the Chinese at that time, and Nelson Mandela's, represented a different picture entirely, and which wasn't the picture that these other people wanted to view, because their support for African National Congress was based on the fact that the key foundation of this party was about the black people in South Africa. Now, when the black people who trusted you that you're going to sacrifice everything for them, later realize that again you are trying to bring the harmony, which harmony does not really exist. Because we remember at the time, Nelson Mandela even asked the black people to throw all the guns in the river. All right. So people who had the protective measures started throwing them. They trusted him, but after all the guns were taken from them, again they entered another phase of suffering. So and they had not prepared themselves well. And then we see Ramaphosa coming in and walking down the same foot of Nelson Mandela under the same political party, African National Congress, which promised the African people of South Africa that it is for them, with them, and it shall always be with them. But again, this is the party that is no longer promising. It's breaking the promises. The foundation at which it was formed is no longer the same. So it's a little bit scary. So this is why a lot of people keep on predicting that probably they may not there may not be another chance for African National Congress to, of course, take lead in South Africa. Which party do you expect? Which party do you see people trying to claim is going to take the lead? Is it this red couple guy? Mulali wakakofira akamyufu mugweddayo Malema.
After Biko was betrayed, the ANC sold out.
Yeah, true, true, true. Jib Jabba, thank you for coming through. True, the lion, the lion of Azania. Um, After Biko was betrayed, because as African National Congress was, of course, drafted, it had a strong foundation, and its aim was to protect the black people, the black Africans in South Africa. Yes, we have a lot of whites in South Africa who say they are South African. So I'm going to try to differentiate them from the rest of the South African people. And after Biko, when Nelson Mandela came in that picture, it was no longer about the black people in South Africa, but it was about South Africa as a whole, and it did not matter the skin color. A lot of people felt they were so actually they felt like they were betrayed. And though they were not so fully satisfied because Nelson Mandela had put South Africa at a certain limelight that probably it made the South Africans excited because the Europeans gave. Remember that time when African National Congress was in a place in South Africa, the Americans and of course the British were up against African National Congress to the point that they named it a terrorist organization. And I remember from nowhere they again embraced Nelson Mandela, who was again the leader of this very organization they named a terrorist organization at that time. Why did they embrace Nelson Mandela? Because he had betrayed the fountain, he had betrayed the aim, the purpose of course, African National Congress when Stephen Biko, of course, also was betrayed. So Nelson Mandela, I feel like he sold out the African National Congress and the entire South African nation, and that's why a lot of people went on losing the morale. But by the time Ramaphosa came into the picture, of course, they had not, though they were not so very comfortable with the African National Congress, that maybe they felt a little betrayed, but they thought maybe since now Ramaphosa is coming, he made change it back to what the aim was. But unfortunately, we again see Ramaphosa moving just straight up in the same foot of Nelson Mandela, which leaves a big gap and a huge heartfelt disappointment within not only the Black South Africans but the entire Africa, because African National Congress was a party that was always looked at as something, as a party that is there to fight against discrimination, against apartheid. It was there to fight for the Black people, in South Africa. So a lot of young Pan Africans at that time and leaders who were looking forward to the freedom of Black people all over the world were focusing at this very, very political party. We see an African National Congress disappearing to the point that we are not sure if it's going to take lead anymore. Uh,
By the way, like you said, ANC's actions now have led to erosion of actually Steve Biko's legacy
mm,
and the diminishing influence of black consciousness
mm,
heroes in South Africa. So the AN, the African National Congress (ANC) has played a pivotal role in shaping the country's political landscape,
mm,
but its choices have not always aligned the principles championed by the leaders like Biko.
mm,
So Biko, a prominent figure in the Black Conscious movement, advocated for self-awareness, empowerment, and liberation of Black people from apartheid oppression. However, over time, the ANC's ideology hegemony has overshadowed other movements, including the Pan-Africanist Congress and the Black Conscious movement. So we see that very many, like we argue that ANC's betrayal of black consciousness and shift
mm,
towards increased liberalism have contributed to the fading recognition of Biko's contribution. The ANC's efforts to airbrush other black political leaders from historical memory have further exacerbated this situation. So, in the essence, the struggle for the black liberation has faced challenges due to the ANC's dominance and sidelining of the movements that once stood alongside Biko as we reflect on the people's
mm,
legacy.
mm,
So it is essential to recognize the complex interplay between political forces and historical narratives in shaping South Africa's post-apartheid uh, way of living.
mm,
Kitegeera?
mm,
So, and by the way, there are a lot of things Jambo Maria and say to
mm.
Jenna.
There are mosquitoes. I gotta get up and make a mosquito.
So, So the African National Congress, the ANC, has faced, like it has failed to do a lot of things in South Africa.
Mm,
When we look at this part has been, of course, in South African politics and power
mm,
for the last 30 years in South Africa.
mm,
But we see a lot of things this part has failed, and this party has failed to do in South Africa. When we look at economic transformation, despite of being in power since the end of apartheid, since
mm,
the official ending of apartheid, or the public ending of apartheid in South Africa, the ANC has struggled to dismantle the oppressive economic structures, economic structures inherited from that era. So, economic inequality remains a pressing issue, and many citizens feel that the ANC has not done enough to address this issue. So,
mm,
when we look at corruption, this is something that is what ANC has done
mm,
in the last 30 years in South Africa. Because these people do corruption in the broad daylight,
mm.
so the ANC has been plagued, of course, by corruption scandals over the last 30 years. Allegations of graft, mismanagement, and unethical behavior have eroded public trust in the party. So corruption within the state-owned enterprises and other institutions has hindered progress and development in South Africa under the ANC.
Mm,
So when we look at service delivery, the ANC has faced a lot of its handling of essential services such as health care, water, electricity, and policy. Some citizens believe that the party has not adequately addressed these critical needs, leading.
oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Oh my god. Who has run your stone? Who has run your stone here? Who? Hamza, why have you run a stone here? Where is your mother? Where is your housemaid? Where is your husband? Call her here. Hurry.
Some citizens believe that the party has
Call
not
your husband
adequately
here.
addressed these critical needs, leading to frustration and disillusionment.
Call her here because if I
So, uh, the ANC, we see that like service delivery, like I said, it has failed to, of course, deliver essential services to people. When we look at local governance, the ANC's performance in local elections has been lackluster in the 2021 local elections. So the party's national vote share dropped to the 46%, highlighting dissatisfaction within the governance and the municipal level. So the ANC's response, to this decline has been criticized inadequate. So, when you talk about internal politics, what ANC has done as far as internal politics, of course, in South Africa, in fighting the factionalism within the ANCs, the ANC have affected its ability to govern effectively. So leadership battles and power struggles have distracted the party from its core responsibilities, like I said earlier about because legacy, so impacting its performance. So while the ANC remains one of the dominant political force in South Africa, it has failed to, of course, to address such issues in South Africa. So, very many South Africans they are looking at other parties during this time, and it is expected actually to, of course, to get less than 50% in these forthcoming elections that are going to be held in May, because uh, African people at a time was at time look not to be concerned about everything that is done by political parties in African countries, but people make fall up of everything in, of course, in Africa. So, talking about the origin of ANC, so a successor of Cape Colony in, of course, when we talk about like how like ANC during the first time during those days, during the early days of ANC, like it did negotiations to end apartheid, and that's why like very many people, even up to now in South Africa, they are giving a chance to this political party. Reason being, it has there is a way to give South Africans compatibility. There is a way people like go in and vote for more seats for this political party as a sympathy, as a payment for negotiations to end apartheid. However, we still see apartheid in South Africa. So from the mid 1980s, as international and internal opposition to apartheid mounted, we see that elements of ANC began to test the prospects of negotiated settlement. So, with the South African government by then, although the prudence of abandoning the armed struggle was an extremely controversial topic with the organization. So, following primarily contact between the ANC and representatives of the state, so business and civil society. So, President F.W. de Klerk announced in February 1990 that the government would of course unban the ANC and other banned political organizations, and that Mandela would be released from prison. So some ANC leaders returned to South Africa from the exile for so-called talks, which led in 1990 and 1991 to the series of bilateral accords with the government establishing a mutual commitment to negotiations. Importantly, the Pretoria Minute of August 1990 included the commitment by the ANC to ultimately suspend its armed struggle. So this made possible the multi-party convention for democratic South Africa and later the multi-party negotiation forum, in which, of course, the ANC was regarded as the main representative of the interests of the anti-apartheid movement. So, however, ongoing political violence with the ANC attributed to a state-sponsored third force led to the recurrent tensions most democratically after of course, the massacre of June 1992. The ANC announced that it was withdrawing from negotiations indefinitely. It faced further casualties in of course, in the Bisho massacre and the Cell House massacre, in other clashes with the state forces and supporters of the Nkatha Freedom Party, However, once negotiations resumed, they resulted in November 1993 in an interim constitution which governed South Africa's first democratic elections on 27 April 1994. In the election, the ANC won an overwhelming 62% majority of the vote. Mandela was elected president and, of course, formed a coalition government of national unity, which, under the previous of the interim constitution, also included the National Party and the IFP. The ANC has controlled the national government since then, even up to now. However, we see that between that time and even up to now, a lot of things ANC has failed to do. Even the apartheid they claim to have fought for in South Africa. We see people being mistreated, being segregated, African people, African natives being segregated. We still see a lot of Bazungus in South Africa living uh, in different places compared to the Africans. We still see Africans being settled in ghettos in South Africa, even up to now. So, ANC, you have nothing to tell me. And it is on this record that, of course, people are focusing, people are looking for new. Looking for new political parties. People are focusing on Malema's political party and, of course, the EF right about in South Africa because ANC, like people looked at ANC as a political party that was made of blacks first of all. That of course very many people thought that is going to pull up everything in South Africa for black people. Even of course nationalization of property in South Africa. But we see a lot of private, of course. Properties in South Africa, the Bazungu properties. People in South Africa, when you look at farms, when you look at every people live separately in South Africa, and yet they say, yet they claim, yet they announced that apartheid ended in South Africa. A lot of people have failed to get jobs even up to now. But when you look, however, we have Bazungus that are unemployed in South Africa, but the number of the people that are unemployed in South Africa, it is bigger when you look at the black people in South Africa, the black South Africans in South Africa. Their number is bigger. They have when we look into unemployment, the number of unemployed blacks in South Africa is bigger compared with the white South Africans. The leading businesses in South Africa, they are the whites or businesses in South Africa. Yet these were the core roles. These were the core roles of the black movement, the black conscious movement. Steve Biko and other members started in South Africa. But these people, they are moving along their lines. They are not moving, of course, along the lines of liberating South Africa, of making South Africa a better place in Africa for every South African native. The other time, in fact, it was yesterday when we talked about racism, and we see capital racism so much in South Africa. We see a lot of Chinese exploiting blacks, exploiting people in South Africa just because of the capital racism. Why is it that the ANC has failed to handle these issues within this 30-year period stay in politics of South Africa? I think ANC knows South Africa better than any other person in South Africa, but it has failed to address. Is it because that the South African presidents, the presidents that we normally have in South Africa, they are puppets, they move along the lines of the Bazungu? Should we categorize presidents in South Africa to be that way? Starting from the president, the first president actually after independence in 1994 when the ANC came into power, a lot of things have failed to come out. I don't know why. So, in the post-apartheid era, two significant breakaway groups have been, of course, formed by former ANC members. Why is it that ANC original members, source members, pioneers make breakaways? It's because like a lot of people within this group, uh, looked at NEC as a party that is not worthy, a party that, of course, that is moving along other lines, rather the lines that were made during the initiation of this ANC party in South Africa. So the first is the Congolese, the Congress of the People, or the Congress of the Peoples of South Africa. This is one of the groups that, of course, make made breakaways from this ANC. So founded by, of course, Moshe Roketa in 2008 in the aftermath of the Porokoya elective conference, when the ANC declined to re-elect Thabo Mbeki as the president and instead compelled his resignation from the national presidency. The second breakaway uh, the second breakaways is the Economic Freedom Fighters, founded in 2013 after the youth leader Julius Malema was expelled from the ANC. We know that Malema was a former ANC member, by the way. So after he was chased away from ANC for indiscipline and other related cases, this guy formed the Economic Freedom Fighters. We see a lot of South African youths, they're coming with this man, they're shouting with this man. But this, by the way, they don't know that this man is a puppet. So before this, we see that the most important split in the ANC's history occurred in 1959 when Robert Sobukwe led a splinter faction of African nationalists to the new Pan-Africanist Congress. So that is that is actually the spirit that is actually recognized to be so of course so important in history, because Robert Sobukwe is one of the members that created No Connection, No Internet. Robert Sobukwe is one of the pioneers of ANC, but spread and created the Pan African Congress. And by the way, this ANC, if at all people could follow up the history of this ANC, a lot of people have been going away from this ANC just because the pioneer, when these people sat and created this party, they had their goals and objectives towards South Africa and South African future. But as time goes on by, people, leaders, as I may say, of ANC, do things their own way, do things according to their own thinking, rather than the grassroots ideas and ideologies and objectives the pioneers did. Yeah. So, like I talked about how different people have, of course, made breakaway from this ANC, and I guess it is the same case why um, different people are what different people are living. Are outweighing um, ANC now. They say that ANC now is not worthy for South Africa.
Julius Malema ali mu group ki?
Julius Malema, it is called People's Freedom Fighters. They call them People's Freedom Fighters. We see that Julius Malema is a fiery youth leader, faced a tumultuous journey within the African National Congress. So, initial suspension was in 2011 when Malema was fined with 10,000 rand and ordered to attend anger management classes for undermining the then President Jacob Zuma, who was
political party eyinza okuba nayo ng'eriko abantu esingyeko kati.
who was the leader of course, ANC by then in 2011. So the ANC warned that if we continue to divide the party within 2 years, his membership will be suspended. So Expulsion, that was suspension, initial suspension.
Mm.
Yes, then suspension. For me, when we were still in school, when they expelling, that is like you're not going to come back.
Mm.
I think that it's meant to be with, of course, expulsion. So, expulsion into Malema was expelled from ANC in 2004
Mm.
when the ANC's disciplinary committee found Malema guilty of fomenting divisions and bringing the party into disrepute. So he was initially handed a 5-year suspension, but later expelled from ANC after an appeal failed. So Malema's combative populist style and both supporters of the derogators within the party, his advocacy for nationalizing mines and replacing Zuma as the ANC leader fueled controversy. Now, of course, he has 14 days to appeal the decision right
Mm.
about that.
Mm.
That is Julius Malema.
We know that we usually when we were talking about African National Congress, Jaba said that of course African National Congress almost, let me say, let me use the short words, it collapsed after Steve Biko was betrayed or was sold out. Now, what we always hear of African National Congress as one of the earliest political parties in South Africa, but there was also one party that was called the Pan Africanist Congress of Azania. That was of course, it was begun by Azania. Now, PAC was the Pan African Congress. It was a South African National Liberation Pan Africanist movement that is now a political party. So we also have a political party that is known as PAG. During the days of Africa's, of course, freedom fighting, during the days of Africa's Pan Africanism, we saw the involvement of very many African leaders from different countries coming into the picture. Now, when you look at a brief history of different Pan Africans, of course, who lost their life, we should remember that PAC broke away from ANC, that is the African National Congress. It was founded by an Africanist group led by Robert Sobukwe that broke away from the African National Congress in 1959 as the PAC objected to the African National Congress. The land belongs to all who live in. We need both white and black. All right, and also rejected a multi-racialist worldview, instead advocating as a South Africa based on Africa. Now, by the around 1959, African National Congress has had lost its meaning. And that's the time when we saw Stephen Biko being sold out at that time. And we realized that some people decided to break away from African National Congress. And they say, because at that time, African National Congress was saying it had changed its agenda from fighting from the black people in South Africa to the land belongs to all who live in both, all who live in it, both the white and the black. And remember, this wasn't the major goal of African National Congress. So, of course, the people who were in African National Congress, like Robert Sobukwe, who, of course, joined this party for the solidarity of the black people in South Africa, or the black South African, felt betrayed to only realize, when they realized that African National Congress is changing their agenda. So they decided to create their own park as a group, which of course rejected this view and advocated a South African based on Africanism. It did not care for it. It wasn't. It Park's agenda was that South Africa is for the Africans. All right, and we should also remember that Sharpeville and the fight. We know that Sharpeville and the fight against the apartheid at that time. First, the government declared a state of emergency and detained around 2,000 people. Then, on April 8th, 1960, both the ANC and the PAC were banned. It became illegal to be a member of this organization. So, before Nelson Mandela, before all these people were arrested to be taken to prison at that time, African National Congress had already broken into two. It had already divided into two. Now, this brings you the story of Nelson Mandela being a sellout. By the time Nelson Mandela was arrested to be taken into prison, African National Congress was not standing on the same foundation it began. They had changed their will, they had changed their mission, everything. That's why we saw few people like the Tiger of Azania, of course, breaking away from PAG, breaking away from National Africa Congress, joining other people, the likes of Robert Sobukwe, to start up a new party that would of course carry the legacy carry the legacy that formerly was for the African National Congress. Now, many times when we look at, of course, what African National Congress uh, did, you realize it has a lot of betrayal. So Bukwe had become, impatient as the African National Congress had the inability to achieve the results. So Bukwe and anti-communists also rejected the African National Congress alliance with the South African Communist Party. So he got his strong men where we see a lot of people. By the way, nowadays people hardly talk about the PAC. People hardly talk about the Pan African Congress Party because it was silenced. But this is the party that had a lot of vibrant young South Africans who lost their lives for the South African. But because Nelson Mandela took lead of the African National Congress, of course, the African National Congress is remembered and is talked about all over the world. Remember, when we look at the Pan African Congress as a party, we see different strong partisans of this, of course, party, naming this that Azania. Azania in the South African means the land of the black people. Azania means the land of the black people. If you guys remember some time back, I told you of a story of a great man who was called the Tiger of Azania. He was one of the people who were arrested, of course, with Nelson Mandela, and his story was cut short. When Nelson Mandela was released from prison, he signed different agreements with he signed different agreements with the people who were taking over South Africa at that time, but the Tiger of Azania refused. Nelson Mandela was used as someone to spy on the fellow prisoners who were in prison at that time. That's why when he came out, he had a lot of privileges. People tell you stories of Winnie Mandela, of course, breaking away from Nelson Mandela. People will tell you she cheated, she did what? She lost the interest in this man because they had big dreams. Their dreams were to fight for the black people. Their dreams were to fight and protect the black people in South Africa. But when Winnie Mandela realized that the husband had lost track, she said, "There is no way I'm going to sleep with a traitor. There is no way I can can still stay with you after betraying our people. So, though a lot of people will give you a different story, Winnie Mandela is a woman to be remembered because even in her stories, she says, the reason why I chose Nelson Mandela wasn't because she was so cute or handsome. I chose him because he had an objective. I chose him because I felt like he was fighting for our people. But when she realized that Mandela was off track, I guess the prison time changed him a little bit. He, of course, um, she tried to reject. Now, the story still goes on, brings us back to the today's topic where Ramaphosa leads the African National Congress. Now, Ramaphosa leading the African National Congress, which is now being threatened by different political parties. To the point that a lot of South Africans are still, South Africans believe that ANC, the African National Congress, this time may not win. We may experience a different political party taking over South Africa's leadership.
Democratic Alliance economic freedom fighters.
Mhm.
Which economic freedom fighters ya Marema.
None abalonda balema baba balabye.
Democratic Alliance leader
Says the country is in crisis. So they liberalize the economy, including a move towards greater economy, I guess.
Democratic Alliance is a South African political party and official opposition to the ruling African National Congress. They are relative.
Mhm.
Henning Sussman, Harry Swayze, and Helen Wall.
Get up. Mogato Yai. Engoye zo kuba mwale muziyira g'omumaizi naye kansirike. Newe mirembe. Ero kusasira.
Hmm?
Nyakusasira.
And
under the African National Congress Constitution, every member of the African National Congress belongs to a local branch, and the branch members select the organization's policies and leaders. Now, they do so primarily by electing delegates to the National Conference, which is currently convened every 5 years. Now, between conferences, the organization is led by its 86 member, that's National Executive Committee, which is elected at which is elected at the end of each conference. Now, the most senior members of the National Executive Committee are so-called the top six officials, and the African National Congress president primarily among them. Now, a systematical process occurs at the subnational levels. Each of the nine provincial executive committees and regional executive committees are elected as provincial and, of course, regional elective conferences, respectively. Now, all respectively also attended by branch delegates, and branch officials are elected at the branch general meeting. The African National Congress has three leagues: the Women's League, the Youth League, and the Veterans League. Under the African National Congress Constitution, the leagues are autonomous. They are autonomous bodies with the scope of devise. Now, their own constitutions, with the scope to devise their own constitutions and policies. Now, for the purpose of national conference, they are treated somewhat like provinces with voting delegates and the power to nominate leadership candidates. Abui, people there go. Abui. Mom. Ina mugure, mpabu zangu. Tumesa mu. Zama abui ya ichi. Abui, people there go. People there go. I think the rap was going on to make what most. Scrolling, I'm about to trip at. All right, now the African National Congress is recognized as the leader of a three-way alliance known as the Tripartite Alliance, with the SAC and Congress of South African Trade Unions, COSATU. The alliance was formalized in the mid 1990 after the African National Congress was unbanned. Now, we know, but it has deeper historical roots. Now, the SSCP had worked closely with the ANC in exile, and the COSATU had aligned itself with the Freedom Charter and Congress Alliance in 1987. Now, the membership and leadership of the three organizations has traditionally overlapped significantly. Now, the alliance constitutes a de facto electoral coalition, of course. Now, the SLCP and COSATU do not contest in government elections, but field candidates through but field candidates through ANC hold senior positions in the African National Congress and influence party policy. However, the SSCP in particular has frequently threatened to field its own candidates. Now, and in 2017, it did so for the first time, running against the African National Congress in by elections in the Matsimaholo municipality, Free State. Now, under South African's closed list proportional representation electoral system, parties have immense power in selecting candidates for legislative bodies. The African National Congress internal candidate selection process is overseen by the so-called list committees and tends to involve a degree of broad democratic participation, especially at the local level, where African National Congress branches vote to nominate candidates for the local government elections. Now, between 2003 and 2008, the African National Congress also gained a significant number of members through the controversial floor crossing process, which occurred especially at the local level. The leadership of the executive in each sphere of government, the president, the provincial premiers, and the mayors are indirectly elected after each election. Now, in practice, the selection of African National Congress candidates for this position is highly centralized, with the African National Congress caucus voting together to elect a pre-decided candidate. Now, although the African National Congress does not always announce whom its caucuses intend to elect, the National Assembly has thus far always elected the African National Congress president as the national president. Oh, we see that the African National Congress has adhered to a formal policy of cadre deployment since 1985, and in the post-apartheid era, the policy includes but is not exhausted by selection of candidates for elections and government positions. It also entails that the central organization deploys African National Congress members to various other strategic positions in the party, state, and economy. The African National Congress prides itself on being a broad church and, like many dominant parties, resembles a catch-all party accommodating a range of ideological tendencies. As Mandela told, of course, the world that is around when he was meeting different delegates. He also said, Nelson Mandela said, African National Congress is a dominant party. It's like many dominant parties. But of course, we see there is a lot of course, influence within this particular party since his reign. Now, the African National Congress has never been a political party. It was formed as a parliament of the African people right from the start, you know, but the African National Congress has turned to be a political party of late. That's why we see a lot of betrayals. That's why we see the people of South Africa trying to withdraw. When you look at leadership as a leadership who is going to work for the people, we need not to look at a 100% politician. Politics is just a game. We don't want to look for gamers. We are looking for people who know what other people want. If we decide to choose or to vote politicians rather than leaders, then we are bound to keep on failing and failing and failing. That's why at the beginning, when I was they used to say that African National Congress is not a political party. But at the end of it all, it has showed that it is indeed a political party because as we opt to see African National Congress being an organization that has leaders who are willing and able to take Africa ahead or South Africa to the next level rather than kissing some other people's. Yeah, and of course, we see they have done exactly that. Take a look. So, the post apartheid, the of course, we say that African National Congress is committed to the idea of non-racialism and it opposing any form of racial tribalistic or ethnic exclusivism or chauvinism. Of course, this wasn't their agenda at the beginning. Everything changed, and more especially when Nelson Mandela came in the picture, the man who is loved by the entire Africa, apart from me. You like him, yeah? You will find a lot of Nelson Mandela Chisawe, Nelson Mandela Hospital, Nelson Mandela Park, Nelson Mandela Terminal, Nelson Mandela whatever.
Even now, our beach, our national
Hey,
stadium,
Nelson Mandela Bush,
it's
Nelson
called
Mandela shit.
Nelson, but it's called Mandela Stadium.
But people don't know it was a scam. We have heard those people keep on saying. There is no way you will say South Africa isn't has no race shit and stuff like that. But we have the existence of the white people in South Africa have been has spoken volume. The way black people were mistreated in way back has spoken volume, and it is still doing so. Who are being given the privilege? South Africa is a very big country, a very extremely huge community, a very huge country. But who are the benefactors? Who are benefiting from this land? Who are benefiting from South Africa's education system? Who are these people benefiting from its economy? Who are these people benefiting from the factories and the companies being built? Who are these people benefiting from the farms, the agricultural system? Who are these people signing the treaties with the Bill Gates? Who are these people signing the agreements that are selling out people? Who are these people doing this? If at all, we should start saying it should belong to a specific. Somehow, I've ever seen some bazungus in South Africa crying that for us we are born here, we don't know anything. These parties have just started of recent. So much 50 something. Hmm? And South Africa has received independence. Sorry, when apartheid was abolished. If apartheid was abolished, there is no way someone can tell you that story. We don't know even our home. Not their home, just come and take them home. So all those are excuses to keep their asses down there, but whatever. It's okay. Okay? It's okay. But everything that South Africa went through is still fresh. Because even the children who were born, even the children who were born, when did apartheid end? South Africa got independence in 1934. Never independence. Yeah. So South Africa's journey to independence is a fascinating one. And of course, South Africa Republic, also known as the Money gonna go get off independence. That doesn't fine. Oh, this is asanga romvuga speed nno naawe. Ndio ogenda n'ojjumi.
No, you will be good. You will be good. You will be good. No, no, no. Ah, ah, hallelujah. Cosa devo vedere ma fuori stop. Fuori stop.
That's crazy. Nah, I can say no silly to adorable. Hmm. One of the democratic revolution. Now, of course, we see that in 1969, Morogoro Conference committed the African National Congress to a national democratic revolution, which, of course, destroyed the existing social and economic relationship, uh, bringing about the correction of the historical injustices perpetrated against the indigenous majority, and thus laid the basis for a new and deeper internationalist approach. Now, for the movement's intellectuals, the concept of the National Democratic Revolution (NDR) was a means of reconciling the anti-apartheid and the anti-colonial project with a second goal. Now, that of establishing domestic and international socialism. The African National Congress is a member of the Socialist International, and its close pattern, the SACP, traditionally conceives itself as a vanguard party. Now, specifically, as implied, of course, specifically as of 1969, um, we saw these two parties coming together to have a major concept and different intellectuals and strategies after the end of the apartheid. Now, the pursuit of the NDR is one of the primary objectives of the African National Congress, as set out in the Constitution. As with the Freedom Charter, the ambiguity of the NDR has allowed it to bear varying interpretations. For example, whereas the SSCP theorists tend to emphasize the anti-capitalist character of the NDR, and some African National Congress policymakers have constrained it as implying the empowerment of the black majority, even with the market capitalist scheme. Now, we know since 1994, consecutive African National Congress governments have held a strong preference for a significant degree of state inversions in the economy. Now, the African National Congress first comprehensive articulation of its post-apartheid economic policy framework was set out in the Reconstruction and the Development Program, which became its electoral manifesto, and also under the same name, the flagship policy of Nelson Mandela's government. Now, the RDP aimed both redress the socio-economic intellectuals created by colonialism and apartheid and to promote economic growth and development. We know that the state invasion was judged a necessary step towards both goals. Specifically, the state was to intervene in the economy through three primary channels: a land reform program, a degree of economic planning through industrial and trade policy, and the state investment in infrastructure and the provision of basic services, including health and education. Now, although the RDP was abandoned in 1996, these three channels of state economy interventions have remained mainstays of subsequent African National Congress policy framework. Again, we are talking about African National Congress of now, since we are talking about South African politics, because for a very long time we have had a lot of leaders coming from a lot of leaders who have been leading South Africa, of course, coming from this very political party. So, I just told it no. I do best story South Africa to twogera ku Ramaphosa yajja addugukira ebyesa. Kyekino kibanga ekisumagidde asagamanya obwira kasitooli binene Matamela Cyril Ramaphosa is the president of South Africa. He was born on the 17th November 1952. He's a South African businessman and a politician, serving as the fifth and current president of South Africa since 2002. A former anti-apartheid activist, trade union leader, and a businessman, Ramaphosa is also the president of the National Congress. Now, Ramaphosa rose to national prominency as the Secretary General of South Africa's biggest and most powerful trade union, the National Union of Mine Workers. That was around 1991. Now, he was elected African National Congress Secretary General under African National Congress President Nelson Mandela and became the African National Congress chief negotiator during the negotiations that ended apartheid. He was elected chairperson of the Constitutional Assembly after the country's first fully democratic election in 1994. Now you all can see how this story runs. So this guy's Ramaphosa's existence started way back. These are the people who sold out Stephen Biko. These are the people who sold out the major agenda of the African National Congress and embraced that South Africa belongs. So shut up. South Africa belongs to everybody. These are the Ramaphosa and his colleague Nelson Mandela. That's why when Nelson Mandela left seat, Ramaphosa came in the picture. Remember, the South Africans don't vote just like the majority. South Africa's election is not like other countries' elections whereby people make lines and they go and vote. South Africans
It was
presidents.
Jacob Zuma before Ramaphosa, Maria. It was Jacob Zuma first.
Zuma Baye.
Remember?
Yeah, Jacob Zuma. Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, that-
I think he's still in jail. I'm not. You guys got to look it up. Whether he's still in jail for corruption. I think they let him. I think they let his ass out.
you know, yeah, yeah. Keith, how are you doing?
Doing okay? How you guys doing?
We are fine. Are you eating popcorn today?
I just stopped to try to get some. They ain't had none of them no dirty bastards. They had a got. I usually like the caramel popcorn. They ain't have none. So I just they out. We just got out and so I stopped for nothing. Shit. I'm about to get some caramel popcorn. He said they out. I wanted to smack that woman in the head. You out. Better order some shit. She said she had some in by Friday. I was like, shit. But she did tell me she had some grasshoppers. Are you crazy? What's wrong with you? Let me stop. Oh man. Hey, hey, Jim Mosquito. You in there now, Jibba? I know Jim was in the other room with me and Demore a minute ago. Jim would be in both of them. Man, that
Oh,
lady that lady took Katie's place, boy. Woo! She gonna be snitching on all y'all, boy. That lady though, talking to Joby and Shamani. Please pay your rent. Don't do wrong. Don't do bad. Like damn. When
what?
Demore told her he paid, yeah, they were doing a show today, and so they were just saying things they do and don't do. And so Demore says he pays his Wi-Fi before he pays his rent. And she's like, "Oh my God, Demore, pay your rent. Don't do bad. Stop it. Stop it." Like, damn, what? So I was laughing about her today. And so, um, um, she's Kenyan, but she sounds like she got a British accent, Maria. I said, I said, I said, yes. I said, hey, where you grew up at? You grew up in Kenya? Yes, I grew up in Kenya. Damn, where at? I was in private schools and all my friends were white people. Oh, okay, shit. And so rest of the staff was laughing about her accent. They were laughing. They made laugh about her accent. So she thought she the queen of England or some shit. Like, yeah. I'm like, you grew up in Kenya? Kenya, Africa?
Mhm.
Okay, okay. Shit. Hey, do you think? That's all I was asking her. Oh my gosh, it was funny. All right, you guys, I'm going to interrupt you guys this session. What are we talking about, South Africa? What about South Africa?
Yeah, you're talking about South Africa.
All right, what about them?
We are talking about the political party,
Okay.
and African National Congress is at stake in the South Africans election. It's like the majorities are trying, of course, are predicting that for the first time, the African National Congress may not win this elections.
Oh yeah, because they haven't done that. Yeah, that's Mandela part. The scammers, the youth know the scammers up. All that, oh Nelson Mandela, all that old shit. They don't got none of their land, and you got the damn another puppet, the other puppet out there, Julius Malina, EFF, another puppet organization. Um, so they're confused, and they're scared to go through sanctions like Zimbabwe did about getting their land back. So, and also, you got white people trying now separate the country. They're trying to make Cape Town, the Cape Town area, into its own country. They're trying to steal part of South Africa. And white people do. They're trying to steal half the country. South Africa, they found oil and gas there. So, oh, we need to be independent. This part of South Africa, the white people need to control. I kick every last one of these white people out. Get your ass out of here. You better get your ass back to Europe, get back to the Netherlands, back to Denmark, wherever the hell you came from. We're not splitting up shit. Since your land never was yours. Somebody, we need to split South Africa up now. Crazy as hell. Put us up, you guys. See, you guys put us up, Maria. Say, white immigrants, because they're immigrants, is that are trying to create
I beg your
a
pardon.
say type this in Google. Say white South Africans try to annex Cape Town. Annex, ANNEX, or separate from South Africa. Just say the Cape Town region tries to separate from South Africa. But that's a fake movement. The white people trying to steal the country. Oh yeah, we want to be independent. We ain't independent. It ain't your goddamn country. What are you talking about? As if white people say we're gonna break up Uganda. A bunch of white people or Indians settled in Western Uganda say, oh, you know what? We don't want to be part of Uganda. We're gonna create our own country. Like, what are you talking about? You see anything, Maria? Anything pop up?
Mm, White South Africans try to separate South Africa. No, I'm only seeing that different stories from BBC, Al Jazeera, and some stupid things. I'm not seeing anything good about that. Racial progress comes for white laborers examining identity, race, and responsibility among white South Africans.
Man,
I guess that topic is Google is not responding to that.
I might not have worded it right. Now they hide everything now. Horror. How you doing, Seth? Are you good?
Yeah. Yeah, go to
Keith,
You guys got it.
they are not bringing it. We are seeing different things entirely that again are praising instead white people in South Africa. The white people are separating South Africa is not popping out.
That's okay.
They are
That's okay.
different things that are popping out.
That's all right. I probably, I probably, uh, I probably said the wrong way. Uh,
Um, you are eating popcorns?
yeah, I said a bag of popcorn, but these are nasty though. Yeah, yeah. These too soft. These, this is white cheddar. The nasty. It's a nasty brand called Lands. These are nasty. That's why I was getting some new ones. These are disgusting, but I don't want to throw them away. White cheddar popcorn, but
Mm.
but it wasn't what I was looking for. The caramel popcorn.
Yeah. Jim Jabba says that white only town in
Yeah,
South
I know about.
Africa.
I ain't talking about that one. I know about the right only town, Jibba Jab, but they want to annex half the country now. That white
Mm.
only town is actually up in the northern. I think it's north of Johannesburg, up to about Zimbabwe. That white only town.
Keith, have you heard of Stephen Biko? And
Stephen
of
Biko.
course, yeah,
They killed him. That was a real freedom fighter. That's why they murdered him.
and the African National Congress at that time was a political party that was standing for the black people, the black Africans in South Africa. But along the run, of course, they changed from their real cause. Though African National Congress is still in existence, but now it is a party that is fighting for, it claims that it is fighting for the unity of South Africans. But again, we see that it is favoring a lot of the whites who are in South Africa.
Yeah, no, exactly.
So, of course, Julius Malema was also in African National Congress,
It was he left.
and
He formed
yeah,
the
and he left.
EFF.
Mm. So we saw a lot of people who were in the African National Congress, but broke away because National Congress was, of course, breaking away from the legacy of Steve Biko at that time. And thus we see different political parties forming, like the PAC, the Pan Africanist Congress at that time, which brings one of the men who was commonly known as the Tiger of Azania at that time. When Nelson Mandela was taken to prison under the African National Congress freedom fighter at that time, when he was among the freedom fighters who were arrested, at that time, African National Congress was already breaking, forming different, people were breaking away from it,
Exactly.
because at that time there are a lot of disagreement. And Nelson Mandela was among the people who were supporting the whites to live with the blacks in South Africa.
Yeah, because he was
But
already a puppet. They'd already groomed him. A lot of people don't know they'd already groomed that puppet ass Negro. See, whenever your hero, whenever your enemy gives you a hero, Africans should know. There go your signs right there. They propped up Nelson Mandela. They'd already good. The Oppenheimers and the De Beers, who actually run that country, and already was propping him and grooming him to take over power. And the only reason they decided to do that because Angola
mm,
had a real was really the only real military in Africa at the time that was actually a power.
mm,
They had defeated the South Africans in Namibia and in South Africa and parts and Botswana, and they told them they said, listen here, if you don't stop apartheid, we're going to kill every white man, every white woman, every white child. We're going to go through you people like goddamn a warm knife through butter. And so White men don't never decide like, hey, I'm gonna let people out of jail. I'm gonna stop apartheid. I'm gonna be good. That's why you don't know about that war. Then also you guys know they came to Museveni and goddamn Kagame before they broke up the army and go in the '90s, and they were going to overthrow Museveni and Kagame ass in Kagame. I mean in Rwanda for them fucking around in the Congo. And Gola went to him and say, hey, we're gonna break you niggas' backs. Keep fucking around in the Congo, we're gonna overthrow you in Uganda, and we're gonna overthrow your ass in Kigali. No military you can put on the field that can match us. And that was a fact. But in 20 years, the white man went in Angola and started slowly breaking up that real military. If you go back 30 years ago, the real military might on the continent was Angola. So when Angola broke the backs of the white people in South Africa and Namibia, they told them no uncertain terms. You can look this up, Maria. Say the secret war. Go to YouTube. That's why. See, Africans, you're not supposed to know this war even existed. That you beat the white man in combat. They call it the secret war because they never put it on no news ever. So go to YouTube real quick, Maria, and look up and say the secret war between Angola and South Africa. See, their narrative, they tell you, oh, we just decided to get good and let Nelson Mandela out of jail. That's a lie. Say the secret war between Angola and South Africa. South Africa, when Angola broke the white man's back. That's the reason why apartheid stopped. It didn't stop because white people said, oh, we're going to be good now. The fake story, they give you that fake story. Most people know they was in a war for 10 years against Angola. And Angola broke their goddamn back. You find it, Seto? Secret war between Angola and South Africa. Between Angola and South Africa.
I'm seeing military defeat of South Africans in Angola.
That's right. That's right. I told you. See, you didn't know none of that history, did you? You know anything about that, did you, Seto? You didn't know it was an African army that beat the white man in South Africa. You didn't know nothing about that. You didn't even know it was Angola that came to goddamn Uganda. So Museveni, they were going to break his fucking back. And Kagame's back in the 90s. You don't even know that. He said, you keep fucking around in the Congo. Because Angola and Congo was part of the same kingdom. The Congo kingdom. So they broke it into two different countries called Angola, Congo. They went to Museveni and Kagame. That's why I was quiet in the early 2000s. While the white man went and dissembled Angola's army. That was the most powerful army on the African continent. So in the 90s they went to they sent message to Museveni. They said, we'll overthrow you, nigga. We'll overthrow you. So Kagame, we'll overthrow you, nigga. You better get your goddamn mind right. You don't got no real military to go against us. We'll overthrow you, niggas. We'll knock you out the box. That's when Kagame and them, oh, Angola. You say, you don't know none of this history. I'm giving you real history. That's in your mind up there, Seth. I'm going to give you real history. Stuff that you ain't learned in no history book. Then the 70s say, oh, we're going to do right. We're not going to start. We're not going. This is early 2000s. This is 20 years ago. So you have Museveni groveling to the Angolans. You have Kagame groveling to the Angolans. Oh, we're not going to do that. We're going to stop. We're not going to keep doing stuff in the Congo. So they start doing this shit now because the white man went in secretly start gutting Angola's military. Angola being stupid, that they let white people back in, start telling them shit. They start destroying their military power. Angola was a military power. The only real black military on the continent. So when they beat South Africa, you see it, they said, listen here, you're gonna stop this apartheid shit. And this is what they said. They said just like this, Seto. They said we're gonna murder. I ain't talking about them because they that's how Namibia got free too. The South Africa controlled Namibia, but the white people own all the land. White people still own the land in Namibia, but they don't control the government like they used to, even though they got control of all the land resources. So Angola told Namibia and South Africa, but it's controlled by the same white people. You ought to stop your shit. We're gonna wipe out everybody white in there. See, white people not used to hearing that from black people. Power, power, unmitigated power. Said to not no. I ain't gonna believe in your Jesus and your Allah. Nah, they ain't hear none of that shit. They said we're gonna kill every one of you motherfuckers. We're gonna go in there. We're gonna kill every white man, every white woman, and every white child. That's what Angola said. And obviously the white people believe, oh, okay, we let Nelson Mandela out of prison. Look at us trying to do right. Look at us, we love everybody, Santo. they tell you in their fake news, see, you didn't know nothing about that war. They tell you, oh, the white people just decided to get good, Santo, and let them out of prison and give the government back to black people. They decided to do good, Santo. That's a lie. They got fucked up in a war. The Africans broke their goddamn back. Said, you'll act right or we'll kill everybody up in here. But I think they should have been different. Africans are loving. You as an African, you're loving and kind. Instead of wiping out your enemy like you're supposed to, you let them regroup. Angola let them regroup. Angola's military is in shambles. Not a power no more. It's all broken up. White man came and broke that shit up. Give them loans. So, hey, we give you a loan, you need to get rid of some of your military shit. Okay, boss. Okay, give us the loan. We'll weaken our military. And I doubt if you can find this history. I don't even want to tell you. Because the white man controlled Kagame in Museveni. But I know for a fact, this is history. Angola went to goddamn Uganda. In 2000, they went to goddamn Rwanda. Personally, they went there. They said, if you niggas don't stop, we're going to overthrow you niggas. And then we're going to kill you. That message was given to Museveni, and they meant it. They're going to kill his ass. And that message was given to Paul fucking punk-ass Kagame, too. Angola made it no uncertain terms. We're going to get rid of you two goddamn boot-licking ass niggas. And so that's when you guys go look at the Congo when it was not no problem. Between 2000, I think like 2014, 15, when they knew Angola's military got too weak, and now Kagame and Museveni moved back in. You go look that up. They were told that. 70 was told that by the Angolans. Nigga, we're gonna get you up out of here. Then we're gonna hang you. That was told to him and Kagame. We're gonna hang you niggas. We're gonna hang you. Okay? Keep fucking around in the Congo with our goddamn cousins. We're gonna hang you niggas. It ain't nothing you can do. Don't talk about you bringing your M23 rebels or your fake army, the Captain Crunch with Museveni's son. We'll break your fucking back. We'll go through you niggas like warm knife through butter. I love the way they said that shit. Love the Angola with that power. We'll go through you niggas like warm knife through butter. You want to get on the field with us? You want to get on the field with us, Uganda and Rwanda? We'll break you niggas' backs. And they would have. They would destroy these niggas. Everybody was quiet. Kagame, quiet. They left the capital. They went to the capital to get fucking Museveni and get power. His ass was gone. They went to Kigali to get goddamn fucking they went to Kigali to get Kagame ass. He was gone. I don't know where him and Museveni went, but they weren't there. These are facts of history. The fact, because Kabila, you go back and look who was the president of Congo was Kabila. Kabila went to Angola because they're cousins. They're the same empire back in the day. That's the Congo Kingdom. There was no Angola. That was Congo. White man broke that up, called it Congo, now Angola. They went to Angola. They said, hey, man, these motherfucking Museveni and this goddamn Kagame are doing all kind of wicked shit in Egypt for the European. Angola said, okay, brother, don't even worry about that. We're gonna go talk to these bootlicking niggas. We got your back. And Kabila was the president. President Kabila, go look it up. He was the president. And you can see that Uganda and Rwanda were in the Congo in the late 1900s and early 2000s. And then you'll see they got their fucking punk asses out of there. Why? Because Angola told them, you two goofy weak niggas don't get your ass out of here, we're gonna break your back. And we're gonna overthrow you. Don't be no more President Museveni and that fake election he been doing for you. Getting your ass up out of there. Won't be no more Kagame. Kagame was just starting. I think Kagame was in power like maybe 5 years at that time. 5 or 6 years. Now it's been 25 years, 26 members. They went to both of them. They sent that message, bro. They went to the cabinet. They told them, you two boot-licking ass niggas keep fucking around in the Congo. Keep fucking around and think we're gonna play with you. Because I remember they go to prison. We went to see Kagame and Museveni both. They were not there, but we left a message. We left a message. Think we fucking around with you two boot-licking ass niggas. Think we fucking around with the Europeans. He said, I love the Angola. Europeans ain't gonna be able to save your ass. I love when they told him that shit. Europeans ain't gonna be able to save you two goofy clown ass niggas. When we come to see you, you're gonna get got. Oh man, I wish they wouldn't have stopped and Angola could have went in and overthrew both them two niggas. But of course they backed down because they knew Angola was a real military. They fought the white man. They ain't fight no other fake African army. They fought a real army. And they were the power of Africa. Angola was it wasn't even an argue was Angola the power of Africa as far as military. I ain't talking about no Nigeria. Angola was the power of Africa. Not no fucking Nigeria. So, but 20 years later, they all weak again. They got loans and destroyed the army. Now it's all disbanded. You never disband your army, African people. So, I had to teach Central that. He know about that secret war. That damn shame in his textbooks. And damn thing gonna be no Ugandan textbooks because Angola came to see a fucking president. Hey nigga, we telling you something. We gonna overthrow you, boy. We gonna get you up out of here. And at that time, Kagame and Museveni knew they didn't have no power to give. If Angola said they coming to see you, they coming to see you. And when Angola said they coming to see you, they coming to see you. And you get your ass up out of office. Because you ain't got no military to stop no Angola back there. How much weapons the white man give you? You didn't have the sophistication as an army. Angola did. Angola been found in South Africa for 10 years whipping their ass. I learned to keep that power going. So I wanted to show Central that history. They never teach nobody none of that history that Africans beat white people in war. You're never supposed to know that ever. That's why it's called the secret war. Ask anybody in Kenya, they don't know. Ghana, they don't know. Nigeria, they don't know. Cameroon, they don't know. Zimbabwe might know. Because it was Angola that helped Zimbabwe get free too. South Africans, they so damn stupid they might not know no shit. But you do know, Congo fucking know. Congo know. And I tell you one thing, my 70 and fucking Kagame know too. And go
Fuck on YouTube. I'm not all you. So Angola South African bundi bevadde bukyagwabadde. Kyakutandigira awo nze ndaba boosa nabositegeera. Era topiki ng'ogireka kugyabadde ayogerako naawe. Anyway, tonight I went down to get up because I wasn't here when he was saying things. But as for me, I'll just drive back to what I was on. So before I went for that small short break. We are looking at of course, the current situation in South Africa with the South African political party. Ajibkeba says, did Cuba help Angola fight uh, South Africa? Um, um, they say that by effectively driving out the international isolated South African forces, Cuba was able to secure control over all the provincial capitals in Angola. Following the withdrawal of Zaire and South Africa, Cuban forces remained in Angola to support the MPLA government against UNITA in the continuing civil war. Of course, we've had a lot of conflicts in Africa that have been, of course, supported by different countries outside Africa. Um, PDF, but anyway. But in regards to that, I will still take you back, guys, to, of course, what we were on. We remember how a lot of people worship and praise Nelson Mandela, being, of course, one of the leaders of the African National Congress, which is, of course, the same political party that, of course, is leading in South Africa. Even Ramaphosa is from the same political party. And of course, Julius Malema also broke from the same political party. What people don't really know is by the time Nelson Mandela was arrested, an African National Congress Party had already had disputes with different people, and they had broken away. Some people broke away and formed different political parties like the PAC, because African National Congress had lost of course, the legacy of Steve Biko. And for them, they were no longer for the black people in South Africa, but they were for the entire South African. To the National African Congress, it did not matter whether you are a white in South Africa or a black person in South Africa. So people, Imagine, you wanted to say something. I think no.
Sí,
Que esse?
Huh?
Mira,
Angola, Angola said they were coming to get set over eating them grasshoppers.
So at that time, like I was telling you guys, of course, Nelson Mandela and many other young people who were fighting for the freedom of South Africans were taken to Robin Hood and other different places. But what people don't have in mind is that at that time, African National Congress had already started breaking. People had started breaking away from it and forming other political parties like PAC, the Pan African Congress. Of course, in this very Pan African Congress, we see a lot of strong South African men who are never talked about. We see the Tiger of Azania. And of course, the Pan African Congress usually used to term itself as the Azania. Azania meaning the land of the black. And of course, these people wanted to remain on the same legacy or the foundation that the African National Congress had laid before the involvement of these other sellouts who were in the picture. So as they went to prison, of course, we saw Nelson Mandela being the foreplay. He was someone who was worshipped. The entire story of the Robin Hood rotates around Nelson Mandela. Little is said about the rest of the colleagues who were in that very prison, because by the time these people were arrested, um, other people had already broken away from African National Congress, though they had not made it so public for the entire South Africa to know. So the entire South Africa, most of the majorities they thought they are still under the same umbrella, but these people had broken away because they saw African National Congress being a sellout. They saw African National Congress trying to embrace the themes of these people who were actually controlling South Africa at that time. So when they went to prison, they said Nelson Mandela suffered a lot. But again, Nelson Mandela was favored in prison because his clothes were changed apparently all the time. He had special meals, and remember they had separated them. Nelson Mandela was with one of the colleagues, and it is said that at a certain time, Nelson Mandela was given the liberty to visit each of the fellows in their different cells. And little did they know that Nelson Mandela was coming to time. Because remember, each time they had people visit, some people visit them from outside, and some others were working with the black people who were the source guard at that time. A lot of communication was moving in and out. And Nelson Mandela was that very person who was letting the government outside know what the inmates are planning. And unfortunately, we saw that a lot of people, just after their release, they lost their lives. Uh, like one man who is never talked about, he used to call himself the tiger of Zania, that the tiger of the black land, the tiger of the black people at that time. Now, when Nelson Mandela came out of prison, of course, a lot of people will tell you that story that, Winnie Mandela was betrayed Nelson Mandela, women are betrayers, she left the man and stuff, blah, blah. Winnie Mandela left Nelson Mandela because the major purpose why she fell in love with this man had lost meaning. Winnie Mandela fell in love with Nelson Mandela because she felt like this is a man who is willing to die and fight for the black
He be,
people in
he betrayed her.
Tanzania.
She didn't betray him.
She
He
did that.
betrayed her. They don't
Yes,
believe that. They believe
yes,
he betrayed her. Remember, he divorced her as soon as he got out of prison. She stayed by his side 'cause she was the real revolutionary. She was the
yeah.
freedom fighter, not him. He was the fake. And so everybody
Mm,
knows that. That's why you go to South Africa, they love her. They know especially now they know he was a bootlicking coon. They love Winnie. She was remember as soon as he got out of prison, this woman waited for this man for 27 years, doing revolutionary things all throughout South Africa. When he divorced her because she was still a revolutionary, he didn't want to talk about no revolution. He was already bought and paid for by the white establishment, Maria. So that's why he divorced her ass and got him and got him the damn the woman who used to be the president's wife of Mozambique, who they think was most likely a spy, had him killed, and then set him up with the other agent, Nelson Mandela. Because you can look that up. His second wife was the damn ex-wife, the former wife of the president of Mozambique. How's that happen, Maria? How's that happen? You can look that up. And Nelson Mandela's second wife was the former wife of the president of Mozambique. Because she was an agent. They worship Winnie Mandela in South Africa. Not Nelson. They love Mama
no,
when she was Winnie Mandela founded.
South Africa is
Oh,
a little
oh, go ahead.
divided. South Africa is a little bit divided. There are those people who believe in Nelson Mandela, and there are those people who believe in Winnie Mandela. So South Africa is a bit divided. There are
Wow.
people who have not believed the matrix that is going on, and that's why we still see some other South African worshiping Nelson Mandela. You say shit about Nelson Mandela, it becomes a problem in South Africa. So not everyone understands the scam. Not everyone understands what, of course, happened during that time. To the point that some of the people in South Africa, some of them used Winnie Mandela as, they used to talk about her as, using her as a symbol of women who betray, their men in hard times. And now they're trying to
I
show her that
never seen that. When
Mandela
did she
is a
ever?
friend
I never
of.
seen. I don't. I never seen that, Maria. I never seen about. I was told she stood by her. She stood by his no good ass, and he's the one that dumped her. Because remember, she was too strong for his weak ass. Because remember, when Winnie found that you was a traitor, what would she do? I want y'all to look this up. When Winnie found she was traitor, she put a tie around your motherfucking body and then light your ass on fire. She'll throw, she would throw gasoline fluid on your ass and burn your ass alive. When she found you was a traitor, you was a spy within the mix. They they do a ring around it. They knock your ass in a tire and burn you alive. That's like, she shouldn't be doing these things because shut up, you weak ass nigga. You can look that up. When he when he would have you murder, have you killed, let's say Seth was part of the organization. Seth went back, and when he found out that Seth was being a spy, he had Seth killed. He murdered his ass. Everybody knew that. So remember they tried to try for terrorism. Try to put on trial for terrorism in South Africa.
Yeah, it's overrated. Sina rumugeza beyogera sibikyogere. Wa- Mugamba agende. Anyway, I remember some time back I told you guys about a man who was, of course, called Masemola, Jafta Masemola, who was commonly known as the Tiger of Azania. Now we know Jafta Masemola was one of the people who were arrested in South Africa. Actually, for him, he spent 27 years in Robben Island. And though a lot of people do worship that Nelson Mandela, served a long time in, of course, Robben Islands, but we see Masemola, of course, who was one of the people who broke away from the African National Congress at that time and decided to join the Pan African, Congress, the Pan African Congress, which was, of course, created by strong Pan Africans who felt like this very ANC had lost its meaning now. On the 7th of April 2018, of course, we saw Masamola's case, of course, appearing in court. For some time, we know that Makamola was assassinated at the same time when he was released from prison. Masamola is one of the longest serving political prisoner on Robben Island in modern history. So people used to call him Brajef or the Tiger of Bazania, as he was, of course, as he was still carrying out his Pan-Africanist work in South Africa. But around the April 17th in 1990, this man had a mysterious car accident, an assassination which was disguised as a car accident. He was sentenced to life imprisonment on Robin Hood Island in 1963, together with his pack comrades, Philomen, Tefu, Samuel, Chibane, and others. And of course, they were jailed for conspiracy to commit acts of sabotage and overthrowing the government by violence means. The Pan African Congress stalwart and former exile who knew Masamola, of course, usually say he was a very strong African man who was ready to die for the South Africans with no question. This very man, Masamola, lost both his parents at an early age, and he was raised by his sister like one of her own children. I know he moved to Marabasta and then to Ataguville in 1942, where he enrolled at Dijon Primary School and completed Standard 6. He proceeded to Humphrey Secondary School, where he obtained a junior certificate in 1950. Then he went to Clinton Training Institute, where he did his higher primary teaching, a teacher's training certificate. Now, this guy was a teacher. I remember there is a certain movie that was acted in South Africa, and it was called Salafina. Now, in this Sarafina movie, there was an act of a teacher who was always trying to tell the students what was going on. As much as the white people were up against the South African students or pupils being taught about the apartheid or the situations that were happening in South Africa, this particular teacher was telling them the truth. Unfortunate, but the funniest thing about this, the teacher was a female in this movie. But it is said that the person who was the female teacher, who is always acted in the Salafina movie, represented the tiger of Azania. Since he was a teacher, he used to say the truth. And for very many times, he was always arrested to the point that some other students who understood and believed in his work, some of them were kidnapped. Until now, no one knows their whereabouts. Until parents started complaining that he should stop teaching their children the Pan Africanism in school. Bro Jeff was one of the greatest teachers that existed at that time. Remember, the education system that was introduced to Africa, of course, was governed by the whites. They decide the curriculum, they decide what you're going to learn. But Bro Jeff always told the young South African students who were in his class the truth about what was here at that time. So a lot of woo, no. Anyway, Masamala's death has not been properly explained, and the Pan Africans, of course, the Pan Africans, the Park and his family, of course, are trying to ensure that his case reaches the finality. Um, for instance, people are asking themselves who was the driver of the truck that collided with his car. Did he appear in court to answer charges? Which court? Are there records of the scene of the accident? Who were the emergency officers who attended the accident and were reported? So all this information is nowhere to be seen. But the South African the South Africans were told that he was actually sorry he died in an accident, and but people still question because political prisoners were treated harsher. Although most of the things, of course, this man wrote about the park in the 1991 review, Benjamin Progood's books, How Can Man Die Better? Of course, that's Benjamin who wrote about this. Sobukwe and the apartheid former SAC member who lived in exile in Britain, Baruch Harrison was right, and park political prisoners on Robben Island were treated worst of all. Now, they say that, of course, this man was never given even a chance to see uh, his people. And most of these people who were in prison actually were poisoned to death. A few people were given the liberty of meeting their families, and among these people who met with their families during the time of prison was Nelson Mandela. The Tiger of Azania, or Bro Jeff Masemola, like I call him, he actually died just as soon as he was released from prison. When Bro Jeff was released from prison, he was supposed to meet Nelson Mandela. Of course, they talked, and they had a few disagreements at that time because he was telling Nelson Mandela that he has betrayed the brotherhood. He has betrayed the society. He has betrayed them as brothers. And people who were there when he was making that phone call still say that Nelson Mandela knew about Masemola's death because as soon as he set off to meet Nelson Mandela, of course, Nelson Mandela at that time had signed contracts with different whites who were living in South Africa at that time. Masemola refused. He said he's not going to sign any contract, but he wants to meet Nelson Mandela. Nelson Mandela should explain why he has decided to work with the same people that they have swore to, of course, to not work with. The same people they are fighting. And at that time, as he had set off to head to meet Nelson Mandela, it is said that he was killed in a car accident. And until now, there are still questions that are running because his family was not allowed to see his dead body. And they said it was a fatal accident. They cannot see him. His burial was just so crazy that no one was allowed to see his body, which does not really make sense because if someone has had that kind of accident, at least the family has the right to see how their person is, have that last, akasemba edisemba nyuma. Yeah, but they have their the funeral right. But his people were not given that, with the claims that he doesn't look good, the body is scattered and stuff like that. So there are still questions because the truck driver was never arrested. They don't know even which kind of truck hit him. And the story is just so not understandable. But this is one of the men who fought, and of course, I think died still fighting for the people of South Africa, the lion of, the tiger of Zania, Masemola. ANC is still a party that is still, of course, is still taking rule in South Africa. I think because of its prominence and given the fact that it existed during the days of apartheid, so it is one of the parties that people know best. It was one of the parties that had strong fighters. I think this still runs in the mind of the South African people. Unfortunately, or I should say, good luckily enough, people are waking up to see. And this is why they are saying that ANC is at the verge of collapsing. South African people are still doubting whether it's going to take lead in the coming, presidency. There are people are claiming other political leaders are going to, of course, take part. But we see most of these sounding political leaders in South Africa, or the politicians, or the opposition leaders, broke away from African National Congress, like Molema. Nataka tuangalie red. And again with the Molema, Molema. Do you know that Molema's party does not only have black people, it also has some white. It has quite South Africans. Now I don't even understand why he broke away from ANC, because it's exactly what ANC stands for. His political party, Molema's political party, is filled with a lot of white South Africans. So he shouldn't have broken away from ANC unless he wanted to be a leader of his own. Namkazi w'omweru. Ekintu kyekomeka wanene ku mugwalo.
So
Bali balabika bamaliriza. Nga si muzungu. Nga mu kyotala. Nga si muzungu. Naye abasaka beka batamba si musaza beka waddala.
Emerald.
It's become mature time. Birthdays are not cold. Hmm? Mm-mm. Umbrella matwa matalo. Indoors. Ndabona babisusurana. Anonya akafanya akalala akali busy.
So currently, South Africa is going through a lot under ANC. South Africa, as a country,
Mpagala batukuyeyo kusalo. Nanga simali. Mukazi.
South Africa as a country is going through corruption, like Keith said. Corruption remains a major concern in South Africa. It is deeply entrenched, especially within political sphere, and notable cases of mismanagement of public funds have occurred, and accountability of such actions is often lacking. So both private and public sectors grapple with bribery and extortion, so contributing to the prevalence of corruption in the country. So a lot of government
Kyala kulya kino kintu kyawa.
a lot of government ministries are they are going through corruption in South Africa. They're carrying out corruption, and a lot of government officials, including the president of South Africa, Ramaphosa, we see a lot of corruption in of course, in South Africa by now under the ANC. Now, the reason why people are underweighing the works of ANC for the last 30 years it has been in existence in South African politics, people are seeing like they are not represented. They are not represented. They have not been. Nothing has been taken to, of course, fight this kind of corruption that is going on in the country. There are a lot of consequences that are related to corruption because there is no way a country can develop when it is corrupt. Like I said, there are very many races in South Africa, but we see that the non-native races, the white races in South Africa, these are the main. These are the main benefactors of everything in South Africa. We see South Africans living in ghettos. Most of them, no matter why they are scammers, most of them they are scammers. They are living in ghettos. So the unemployment rate in South Africa is approximately 35%, which is, of course, alarmingly high. Factors contributing to this issue include slow economic growth, job shortages, especially for the youth, labor market imbalances, and the leaders of apartheid, which perpetuates inequality even up to now. They said apartheid ended in South Africa, but apartheid is still in South Africa. Racism, we still see racism in South Africa today because yesterday we had a topic of capital racism. Of course, one of the countries that are experiencing that is South Africa because capitalism works hand in hand with inequality. There must be people who are less privileged compared to others. So apartheid, the leaders of apartheid in South Africa, and apartheid in South Africa has made very many people unemployed, has made very many people poor, even up to this time. The whites in South Africa before apartheid, the whites that they are the same whites that still hold most of the wealth, most of the accommodation centers, most of the schools. They are still for the whites, and are quite students are going for these kind of schools, and of course hotels, bars, even up to now. One year ago, I watched a video. Uh, of two white South Africans who are fighting a black South African in a bar.
Mhm.
So this inequality, the legacy of apartheid still holds on in South Africa, even after those 30 years of claiming that they ended apartheid in South Africa. I don't know whether it is among the manifestos of course, the ANC to cover, to sugarcoat this apartheid thing. So we see energy crisis in South Africa, where faces South Africa faces ongoing energy crisis, causing significant hardships for the citizens. The shortage of reliable electricity supply impacts daily life, business, and economic stability. Uh, there are a lot of businesses that are done by electricity and power. But we see a lot of shortages of course, in power in South Africa. South Africa is lacking enough power, and the governments that have been there under ANC, because ANC has been winning high in the recent years in South Africa. They have not done any aid to help the people of South Africa to overcome such electricity fluctuations and problems in the recent 30 years. So no wonder why. Don't be surprised if at all the youths in South Africa come May this year go in for Malema's political party, the freedom fighters. So poverty and unemployment, they call them economic freedom fighters. Poverty and unemployment, we see that despite of economic recovery from impact of COVID-19 pandemic, poverty and unemployment continue to affect millions of South Africans. Many struggle to make ends meet due to limited job opportunities and economic disparities. Like I said, those uh, that kind of disparities that are in South Africa, they are true black disparities in South Africa. So limited access to public services. South Africa faces challenges related to access to quality public services. High unemployment, poverty, and social inequality impact citizens' quality of life and overall well-being in South Africa. When we look at the social inequality, the legacy of apartheid still casts as a shadow over South Africa, like I said, perpetuating economic and social disparities. Bridging these gaps remains a critical challenge for the nation. So, efforts to address these challenges is not enough by the ruling government in South Africa of Ramaphosa and other ANC leaders that have been winning in South Africa. So, bye bye, take care. Yeah, bye.
My greetings, I'm back. What the
When we look at Matamira Sefero Ramaphosa, is of course a South African businessman and a politician serving as the fifth and current president of South Africa since 2018. So, a former anti-apartheid activist, trade union leader, and a businessman. Ramaphosa is also the president leader of the African National Congress. So, um, Ramaphosa rose to national prominence as as the Secretary General of the South Africa's biggest and most powerful trade union, the National Union of Mine Workers. So he was elected ANC Secretary General under the ANC President Nelson Mandela and became the ANC chief negotiator during the negotiations that ended apartheid. So he was elected the chairperson of the Constitutional Assembly after the country's first fully democratic elections in 1994. And some observers believed that he was Mandela's preferred successor. However, Ramaphosa resigned from politics in 1996 and became a well known as a businessman, including as an owner of McDonald's South Africa, chair of board for MTN, member of board for Ronmin, and of course founder of Shaduka Group. He returned to politics in December 2012 at the ANC 53 National Conference and served as the deputy president of the South Africa under the president of Jacob Zuma from 2014 and 2018 when he was elected as the president of South Africa. So he was also chairman of the National Planning Commission at the ANC's 54 National Conference on 18 December 2017. He was elected the president of ANC 2 months later, the day after Zuma resigned on 14 February 2018. The National Assembly elected Ramaphosa as the president of South Africa. He began his first full term as the president in May 2019 following the ANC's victory in the 2019 general elections, while President Ramaphosa served as the chairperson of the African Union from 2020 to 2021 um, and led South Africa's response to the COVID-19 pandemic. Ramaphosa's net worth was is actually estimated to be um, 450 USD million dollars. So as of 2018, he has begun to be criticized for his conduct and involvement in his business interests, including his harsh posture as Ronmin director towards the Marikana miners' strike in the week ahead the Marikana massacre. So on 19th December 2022, it was announced that the ANC's 55th National Conference had elected Ramaphosa to the second term as the president of ANC. So currently, we see Ramaphosa as the president of the ANC currently. Ezo zimunyeni kikibuga munyeni okuba nkiolubera eti
yakakabina
tujja kutta abakyala yaka omuntu atto. So Ramaphosa's history, his life before politics. Um, there is a way these people like the group of ANC, different leaders of ANC. There is something they created in South African politics that everyone must rule. but no level now starting from Mandela, all those people want to rule South Africa. They want to become presidents of South Africa. Zuma, all those people, they have that attachment with ANC, that first group that claimed to be fighting apartheid in South Africa.
And the only advantage they have is that ANC is among the oldest parties
Mm.
that is known all over. Remember, in South Africa, you don't line up for elections like other countries, like
President
other
elections.
Africans do. You don't line up for presidential elections, but there are those people that are nominated. If you have a big nomination in Simo Parliament, hmm,
Yeah, if you
if you
have
have
big
a big
numbers,
number of course parliament
seats.
representative or seats, you emerge as the president of that particular political party. You emerge the president. No one decides. So African National Congress, I think, has always had that advantage, given the fact that it is known, it is prominent, it has been there throughout the apartheid and throughout the struggles of South Africa. All right, but I don't think it's like particularly that people love or Ramaphosa or whoever the ANC president was. You see, but rather the political party, because people believe this is the party that they've been struggling with. This is the party that has been fighting for them. But now everything has changed. We are seeing people who have lost the value of the party. We are seeing a strong party with weak people. So I think that's where everything goes wrong.
So South Africans, we know that, like you say, do not vote for a president. Instead, they elect the 400 members of the National Assembly, who go on to vote for a new head of state within 30 days of the general elections.
Mm.
So, as a result, there are no presidential candidates as such, but each party leader fronts their national campaign and their portrait will appear on the ballot paper. So, the ANC's President Ramaphosa, the EDA's John Steen Hussein, and of course the EFF Julius Malema will all feature prominently. So the leader of whichever party can master a majority in National Assembly after the election would be expected to become the next president in South Africa. So if at all like
Malema yasinzemu abantu mu parliament bonna.
ANC ANC ate ne kuddako DA
Namalema
akwata
talina
yakusatu
talina gy'alaga oyo.
akwata kyakusatu akwata kyakusatu Malema. So the main opposition Democratic Alliance, like uh, this actually the DA is the main opposition. Like in South Africa, it is the main opposition under the other guy John, and of course Malema's political party takes the third. The third, it is the third largest party in parliament.
So there
Economic
is no
freedom
still room for
fighters.
Malema.
Eh?
Malema doesn't have room.
He still has time to prepare. To prepare. But of course, South Africans, they are voting on 29th of May, and of course, 28 million people, they are expected to vote for, of course, national and provincial parliaments seats. People are expected to vote. And of course, it will be the country's seventh democratic general elections carried out within the countries of South Africa. They have taken a place every 5 years since 1994 when the white minority rule ended the ANC and came to power. So we expect all the 28 million South Africans, they can make good choices this time around, because the ANC has been making a lot of blunders over years, but people still go in for these political parties. I don't know what people think about the future of South Africa. I don't know why like people leave this political party to rule, and of course Is it that the people are paid whenever the political party stays, besides besides how old the political party is in a country, or the political party has stayed too much, has stayed for some good time in a country,
nfuna erinnya eddala ly'enja okuwa omwana.
we see we see we see like
Mulala sikusaliko badako.
when we look at countries like that have had those political parties that have been in power for some good time, tezivaako those political parties. For the case of ANC, ekimanyi ANC abantu bazze nga balondanga ANC, even these people that have splitted from ANC,
Ekyakugambya nti awaliwo obuzibu
even these people,
baakasangwawo
and it is,
kati
it is the
bangi.
same thing I told you, that these people, like these people in the ANC, they are like the masters of South Africa. Everyone must pass through ANC to be a president.
Bangi ati kati oyinza osanga ng'abakiikirira ewaabwe babaagala. Obuzibu buli ku kikulembeze kino ekya waggulu.
Naye babivaako dda. They are not working within the lines of the ANC foundation staff.
Anti, they are no longer. In fact, they broke away long time even before now. But remember, it was Maniko having Museveni lwaki abantu abamu bamulonda yatuwonya abakadde balina story zaabwe nga so for them ne baba bakola atya balaba nti yewaabwe yali okitegeera webale nnyo kati ye ANC kati giwenga Museveni.
But for the case of my mom, she reflects on the war.
Ati
She's like, I don't want
anti kati kyengugamba
the war.
anti vako
Jan.
anti bwamanyi eyayimirizawo emirembe ekyokubiri the struggle that was there during the days of apartheid, because this apartheid policy has just left and it is still there a little bit. The volume of it has just ended. Yawezesa n'emyaka 30 ana
Well, nga bagimaze
mm.
asatu gawezi.
Asatu yaddi nga mu 94
Anti ANC yagifayitinga
mu 94
94.
ewezi kati njagala
bajja koresha
kati manya abantu abali 35 sate wati baji experiencingako, they have ever tested the apartheid. Even the youths, by the way, because it was abolished 30 years ago from now. Sorry, before now, that is 30 years ago. That means even some percentage of youths have ever experienced the apartheid. They were there when ANC was in place. They were there when all this saga was taking place, where a lot of South Africans were shot. I remember South Africans when they came to the cells where they had arrested the likes of Nelson Mandela and JF and other people, and they shot the white people who were there, shot and killed thousands, and the thousands of South Africans who are demonstrating outside the prison. And that's why they had to move these people to Robin Hood, because they knew people would come and maybe break and then maybe cause a prison break. So they had to ship these people and take them to Robin Hood. Now, very many people, when you look, people were there, almost 3/4 of the population that existed at that time is still in existence. So the majority, this is why we have this damn political party still taking lead in South Africa, even if the South Africans know they are not doing anything good. But like 3/4 of the entire South African population, more especially the Black South African population, experience the apartheid. First of all, South Africa, so at the biggest population, they have been through this, they have seen, and I think this is where the threat comes. And given the fact of what they went through and the pain that they had to endure, probably it is very hard for them to or having a hope for other things. And thank you so much for loving and supporting Black with Fire Network. It's time up for us. Thank you, Jimmy Jabbar. Thank you, General Mosquito. Thank you guys for the silent majorities who are always watching without saying a thing. We know you're always watching. Thank you so much, the silent majorities. It has been me, Africa Maria, with my colleague, and I'm
Yes, thank
saying
you.
have a blessed day. See you tomorrow. Bye.